Good morning, YouTube. It's 10 a.m. in the great state of Texas, and no, I did not have that beer at 10 o'clock in the morning. But what I did have was an idea for a Halloween project that I literally did in October of 2023, and I never got around to making it. So you guys are watching the first half of this project back from October. So all I did here, this was supposed to be like a bonus episode video. Speaking of bonus episodes, sorry I didn't put out a video on Thursday after saying I was. I got caught up doing stuff and I didn't have a chance to do it, so I apologize. So all we're doing here in this early portion of the video is mixing up 3 different color epoxies, which I have done in the past, and it gets this cool swirling galaxy type of effect that I like to do. This is probably one of my favorite type of resin molds to kind of make because the colors all mix and blend together and it looks really cool. So obviously I did this back in October and this was supposed to be a Halloween bonus project, so that's why you have the dark red, the green, and the black, and it mixes up really cool in this. I really like how this looks, and I'm over here making a mess, pouring it over, and just getting this in the molds. 2 small molds, one larger and one smaller. And I was going to do a lid with this, and obviously, as you guys saw by the thumbnail, obviously we're doing lids now on the channel. So mixed that up, didn't use enough of it, but I was like, it doesn't matter, this is a hodgepodge kind of bowl, so we're just going to go ahead and mix up 3 more colors and essentially do the same thing and just top those off. So all we're doing is measuring up the resin, and then we're going to mix it all up and then put it back on top of it just to fill up the molds. So again, this project is loaded with problems. This first half goes relatively well because I did this back in October when it was still like 80-90 degrees in Texas. So resin, if you didn't know, is very temperamental when it comes to temperature. It's either too hot, too cold. To really work with resin really well, you have to get it in that Goldilocks zone. So all we're doing here is finishing this up and pouring this on the top, and everything is going smooth. You know why? Because the resin's nice and warm, the workshop's about 85 degrees, and we're not having a lot of problems, and this sets up really well. You can see there, really good resin. It looks really cool. A lot of cool colors, not a whole lot of problems. So fast forward now, notice how I'm in a sweater or a top here, and it is 1,000 degrees. So here we are, got that, and I'm gonna make like a sandwich thing essentially with it, or at least that was my goal. But it is freezing cold in the state of Texas, and here we are putting things together, and I have no idea why I'm in shorts in this one. You know why? Because I think I just realized that these are 2 separate projects. Yeah, I think I already did this one. This is leftover from a different epoxy project. Yep, loaded full of problems. Did not work. I actually cracked that resin. Or did I? I don't even know. Huh. Fun fact, this is the first time I'm watching this with you guys, so I think I end up cracking this one as well. This is the problem with leaving stuff over from like literally 4 months ago. Yep. Okay, so here we go. So this is the same project. So so now I remember what happened. What I ended up doing was putting it back in the mold, and I'm using some white pigment. Okay, that's great. Okay, so this is the same resin from the same video, from the same project. Okay, good. See, I'm confused just as much as you guys. So what we're doing here, obviously you saw me try to use this resin and I cracked it. I had totally forgot that this happened. This was a fun little mistake here in the editing. I totally forgot that happened. But just pouring more epoxy and then just getting it in the middle, because I was wondering why I was wearing a sweater with shorts, because I don't remember that part. But it was still, like, I guess cold enough to warrant wearing a sweatshirt. But anyway, we got that all fixed up. So all we're doing here is trying to salvage this epoxy. And maybe that's why I didn't use this as a bonus project, because I just never got around to doing it. So, okay, now officially we are fast forwarding to January. So from October to January, that's October, November, December, that's like 3 months ago. So now we got everything out of the mold, everything is set up. I totally forgot that happened. That's just so crazy. Oh well, fun little mistake, I guess. So, anyway, this is now January yesterday, and we are going to attempt to put the faceplate on after totally forgetting, but there's still more problems. So obviously you saw there that the the epoxy broke, which I totally forgot, and now I'm going to put waste blocks on, attempting to put the faceplate on them. And for some reason, I end up cracking the wood on. You can see the giant cracks that are forming, so I had to stop there. Was kind of aggravated with it. Take the screws out and then get a new waste block, and I started to do that, and I realized that wasn't going to work either. So just full of problems. Long story short, put enough glue on there and then put more glue on there to where everything kind of attached. So boom. Problem though, here we go. It is definitely not centered, and this kind of doesn't do it justice on the video, but I'm getting a lot of wobble on this one. So eventually we got that all worked down. Actually, I think it's the other piece that gave me the problem where I didn't get anything exactly centered. But eventually we got the waste block on there, and then we got the faceplate on, so we're good to go. And now we're just turning it down into a nice cylinder like we usually will do with these projects. And it's about 34 degrees in the workshop when I'm doing this, and back to the epoxy being very temperamental when it's very cold. So like I said, this project I had saved from October. So this piece of epoxy was literally sitting in my garage or in my workshop since October, and we've had a couple of freezes. The epoxy becomes very brittle. It becomes pretty much like glass when it gets really, really cold. So instead of having a lot of good ribbons to work with, I was having a lot of issues with chatter and chip out with this one. And here I am trying to make the mortise zoomed in really, really close. And as I'm doing this, I'm getting a lot of spatter back from the chisels. And sorry for the shoddy camera work. I actually got a new ring light, so I'm trying to angle everything a little bit closer, but trying to zoom out there. But you can kind of get a better appreciation for making the mortise here. But eventually, we got everything, cut down. Now we're just gonna pop that waste block off instead of working it down on the lathe. Came off real easy, no issues there. So now all we're going to do is flatten the faceplate, or flatten the top, and then we're going to start shaping our bowl. But you can see here, if you go back and watch last week's video, the lighting was very, very dim, but I got this brand new high-speed ring light, which I really, really like, and now it's a lot brighter so you guys can actually see what's kind of going on here. And once we got to this part was pretty easy, not a whole lot of issues, and now we're just starting the gouging portion of it here. And again, like I said, it's pretty cold inside of the workshop, so working with the epoxy becomes a little bit more difficult. In the summertime, the ribbons come off a lot better because the resin's a little bit warmer, so it's a little bit more malleable. But overall, not a lot of problems with this, and usually I judge a project by it not jumping off the lathe. So if it doesn't jump off the lathe, that means we had a pretty good project no matter what tends to happen. But here we are about halfway gouged through it, not a whole lot of issues. Went from a smaller to a larger carbide tool and just working out the edges here, and then just deciding how thick we want the walls of the bowl to be, because we are going to make a lid, but you'll see a little bit later we're going to have some issues with that as well. So, that's to be expected. But overall, this part is going pretty smooth, not a whole lot of issues here. And then we're just making a mess here. You can see all the cool shavings and ribbons. And I'm pretty happy with how this is turning out. I'm, thinking the colors on it are going to come out really, really well. But that one little bowl created so many shavings, so that's going to be a lot of fun to clean up. And it really, really was. Actually, cleaning up the workshop is absolutely dreadful. I hate doing it. But anyway, now we got our second bowl on here, and this is the one that was really not centered, and you guys are about to see me have a absolute connipshit with this because it is wobbling everywhere. Here I am trying to start it, and then you can just see the amount of chips because it's freezing cold, and the epoxy is not liking the cold weather, and it's not liking this chisel, and there's a lot of unevenness, and I almost gave up. But like so many other things on this channel, you just got to work the problem. So we are definitely working the problem on this one. So I didn't exactly know what to do, but take small, slow, little shallow strokes and try to save as much of the material as possible. So this was kind of a happy mistake because what ended up happening is I shaped it into like a nice dome shape, and it kind of was really a lot smaller than I wanted it to, but you'll see here in a little bit it actually forms really well to the actual bowl portion of it. But we were actually able to get a lot of that chip out of it, and now we're just working it to a smaller piece that'll be manageable and fixing all these little shavings off. So got that done, and now we're just flattening the dome here. And this was pretty smooth. Not a whole lot of issues here. We're just slowly working off the material, and I'm like, okay, pretty good. It looks a lot better than that horribleness that we had about 4 minutes ago. So flattening this down because we got to make a mortise and reverse it onto the chuck. However, we're going to have problems with this, because what is happening here is, if you guys noticed for the bowl, when I put that piece of pine on there, the wood kind of like split a little bit. So what you can't tell by this is that I'm already getting a lot of wobble, because that piece of pine is actually detaching from the actual blank itself. So I'm having to really slow it down, take my time, and then trying to size up this chuck, but it's just not where I want it to be. And you can see here, I'm just getting so much chip out because of the wobbling on it, but I don't want to reattach it and re-put the faceplate on, because I already don't have enough material to work with. So I'm just trying to work the problem as best as possible, and then just trying to salvage this, because I know I'm going to end up turning down this whole part. I just need to make a mortise so I can flip it and then start where I want to. But work the edges out, and eventually, in spite of how ugly the edges of it looked, I was able to get it made and sized to the way that I wanted. So now I got it flipped over, I took the waste block off, and now we are going to make another mortise so I can flip it again and then shape it into the dome that I want it to be. And this part went relatively smooth. Here I for the first time noticed just how small the piece is. So now I'm having to try to salvage as much material as possible, but at the same time keep it relatively into the same shape. So once I found the sizing that I wanted, now I'm just making a mortise so I can again flip it over and start working down the material to make the lid a little bit more flush. So this part went relatively easy. Not a whole lot of issues here. My biggest fear was just that the mortise wasn't going to hold up on the headstock portion of it, and it was going to fly off the lathe. But like I said, so many problems with this one, but we worked the problem and just got things done. So here we are, flipped once again, and now we're just working the material off, and then we're going to size this dome down the way that we want to. And I learned so much from this project, messing it up, that the next one will definitely work a lot better, hopefully. But again, the temperature in the workshop working with the epoxy is a little bit problematic. But you can see here, looks really good. Not a whole lot of problems once we got that down. So then what I ended up doing was sizing the actual bowl to the actual lip of the top of it, and now I can just size everything the way that I want, and it looks a little bit more clean, and it flushes directly with the lid. So that was a happy little mistake that I made, but overall I think it turns out really good. And then we'll end up sanding it from 340 all the way up to 800 grit, and then we just hit it with a micro mesh, but skipped a whole lot of the other sanding portion of it because sanding is boring and I absolutely dread and hate doing it. But that's what we did, and then we came back and polished it, hit it with a micro mesh, and then when you use the Yorkshire grit, we used the Shilla wax, and then we came back and finished it with the wood wax polish. But after all the polishing and everything, came out really well. I was really happy how this turned out. And then I came back and hit it with a drill and took one of the light bright pieces, and I'm going to use that as a little attachment point for it. I just have to figure out the size of the drill. And this part gave me another problem because I didn't make the hole big enough. So I had to come back, and then my drill ended up dying, so I had to charge the battery. But overall, we got that fixed. So then we came back, polished everything up. Like I said, we went through the Yorkshire grit, we went through the Shilla wax, and then we just finished it off with the regular wood wax. But overall, pretty happy how this turned out. This is the finished product here. Looks really cool. So in spite of all the problems, the fracture in the beginning, not getting to the actual project from October until January, and then it kind of having all the chip out and everything, looks really cool. So really happy how this turned out. Next one's going to look a lot better. Hopefully it won't give us as many problems, but overall pretty happy with it. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright, peace. Okay, so project is done, and this little guy turned out absolutely beautiful. So had a lot of problems with this one, but man, did we get it done. Look at that. Like, it just comes off. and it fits like perfectly. Like, did a lot of experimentation with this one. I haven't been really making lids. 5 years of doing woodworking, I very rarely make lids on my bowls, but I think I'm going to start for the remainder of the year. Everything is going to have a lid, or at least I'm going to try. Funny fact, I'm sure I went over this in the commentary. This was actually a project left over from like Halloween. This was going to be a bonus project that I just never got around to. But man, I am really happy how this turned out. It looks absolutely gorgeous. But man, just really cool bowl. And you went through all that in the commentary, obviously. But problems with the top, problems with the bottom, just problems all around. But we figured it out. We got it done. Really excited about some of the projects that I'm going to start doing a little bit later in the year. It's freezing cold right now. I got to do this real fast because I got the Houston Texans tied up with Baltimore and it's halftime. But this is literally the day before this project comes out. So anyway, hope you guys liked it. Hope you got something out of it. Really cool. We're going to start doing lids. It's like 33 degrees right now. I know. In Texas, that's freezing for us. So hope you guys liked it. And I'll see you guys in the next one. All right. Peace.